And it's great to have Big Max Gawn with us again this morning on the Breakfast Club back in studio. Morning, Max.
Morning, gents. Happy to be here.
Great to have you. Did you have Brandon Parfitt in your Supercoach team?
No, I didn't have Brandon Parfitt. I didn't get the tip on that one at the start of the year.
That's disappointing.
Yeah, I know. He's been scoring well.
Scored very well, 168 points on the weekend.
168?
Yeah.
Is that good?
Well, I don't know, but he's on the top of the leaderboard here in the paper today.
Is that good?
I don't know, but it's atop of everyone else on the leaderboard here today in the paper, the top 5. So I'm assuming that's good. How did you go, Supercoach-wise, this week?
No, I haven't really read the news post our game half, so I wouldn't know what I scored. I'm guessing not that well.
Well, one man we spoke about was Tom Mitchell, who was in your side. Yep. Now, Nathan Jones did a good job in limiting the 4,000 possessions he had, but he was very effective around the stoppages. I think he picked up a dozen clearances.
Yeah, so Jonesy got given the role there, and it was actually quite well disguised. Everyone thought Bernie was going to go to him. I'm not sure who. I think Goody might have thrown Bernie's name in the media earlier on in the week, and Jonesy got the role, and he actually played really well on him. But I think Tom Mitchell got a lot of clearances, definitely in the second half. So I don't think that's at Jonesy's fault. I feel like our whole team sort of depreciated a little bit in the second half, but it just adds another bone to Jonesy's career. He's able to tag players. He's done a couple. He did Mark Murphy about 2 years ago, which is one of the best roles I've seen, and he's done another one. You're
winning so many hit-outs. How hard is it to change the structure within a game when you're clearly dominating the throw-ins and the ball-ups, but to maybe start hitting the ball outside? How hard is it to change the guys at your feet?
Yeah, it did get quite difficult. Credit to Hawthorn. We had to sort of throw a few things up because a lot of stuff wasn't working early. And especially when we got quite a negative role in there with Nathan playing on Tom. And Nathan's probably the core of our midfield. We had sort of just two guys working together and a little bit of inexperience in those two as well. And there was a period there where Hawthorn won about every clearance for a 20 minutes little time slot. And I was getting my hand on it, but it wasn't really going where we wanted it to go.
I want to sort of to broaden the discussion out a little bit to start with. You're less than 48 hours since you played. So I'm interested in, how's your body feel after just a short length of time since your game? And how long will it be till you feel you're back to 100%?
Yeah, right now I'm feeling not too bad. I've pulled up probably the best I have from a game, but today is our first time that we were actually encouraged to move. So yesterday I was on the couch a lot, but today we're encouraged to move. So I'll get out there and have a little jog and maybe lift a couple of weights. But we got a really long break this week, so it's best to take it a little bit easier at the start of the week. And some guys like me that are a little bit heavier and it puts a bit of pressure on our joints, I might even take a couple more days off. Because
obviously you're a huge guy. What do you do the day after a game? Like just literally nothing, or do you go for a walk to try and get the stiffness out? What are the sort of things you do?
It probably depends the result of the game as well sometimes. If we win and I've played well, I'm reading the paper in the cafe. If we lose, I'm in a dark room for probably 12 hours. No, look, yesterday I didn't do too much. I went in the club, did some basic recovery. Usually I change it up between an ice bath or a beach. Like it's pretty standard protocol for most footballers, and then I would have had just caught up with a couple of mates for dinner. So yesterday's very, very low key. You do run about 14, 15k during the game. And obviously, the amount of stoppages there were and the wet and the conditions that we got on Sunday, you're going to get a lot more sore. So they'll probably be very careful at the start of this week.
So then the mental side of things. Obviously, a lot of Melbourne supporters are really disappointed with what happened on Sunday. You played in the game. What's your emotional levels like? How disappointed are you, and how long are you disappointed before you have to actually start moving forward?
Yeah, I've said this publicly a lot. I'm a Melbourne supporter as well. I mean, the way I grew up into this game, my first 4 or 5 years, I was in the stands a lot just watching footy, and I just grew to become a lover of this club, and I wear my heart on my sleeve as well, and a result like that hits the players as hard as it does the supporters. I know we've got some of the more passionate supporters in the land, and they definitely get around us when we win, and they let us know when we lose, and that's what you want from your supporters as well. So the job of the players, though, is obviously to get over it a little bit more quicker than the supporters, and we got to start looking into Richmond. Lucky enough, we got a 9-day break, so we can actually review the Hawthorn game. I don't like a lot of clubs when when a bit of an out of the blue smashing comes, they go, we won't review that game, we will just pass it on. But I reckon we'll get a lot of learnings out of reviewing that game. When I was out there live, it felt like some of the stuff that Hawthorn was doing was really clinical. So being able to review that game will be something that will probably help us go into the future.
So before you review it, just going back to going into the game, did you see it internally as a really important fixture for your team? Because there's a bit expected about your footy club in 2018. We've all talked about that through the pre-season. And you come up against a team that's had a lot of success in recent years. Last year was a bit of a blip on the radar, but they'd shown pretty good form. Was it one of those games where you thought, we need to actually perform well here just to find out where we are leading up to it?
Every time I play Hawthorn, I still see them as the best team in the comp. Obviously, they had a year last year where they struggled a tiny bit, but I still saw them when we played them last year as the best team in the comp. So it's going to be a battle for us, and we knew that we were playing the best team of the decade, and it's a chance for us to show how far we've come. And unfortunately, we didn't put that on show.
We just spoke about different plans and you couldn't get them to unfold, and Hawthorn are clinical, and you spend all week, Monday to Friday, putting all these plans in place. And we saw a number of games on the weekend. We had rain. So how does that affect, I guess, the plan and the coaching in the last couple of hours leading into a game?
Yeah, it probably a couple of things were mentioned around game day, but our day was a little bit different compared to the Saturday, where ours wasn't really forecasted. There was a chance for early showers in the morning and then maybe be dry, but it sort of drizzled throughout the game, which wasn't really expected. But you get that in football, so we knew what sort of brand we had to go to if it started raining. Unfortunately, it looked like Hawthorn did that a lot better than what we did. And Hawthorn, the last 3 times we've played them, twice it's rained, and both times they've been clinical in this sort of way they play. So they're quite good in those conditions.
But how hard is it for players? We often see, and you said the players don't adjust to the conditions. You spend all week, your training drills. For example, every time we turn the ball over at halfback, we're taking it out the fat side.
Yep.
And players are just locked into that mode, but the conditions don't suit that sort of play.
It's funny, training's like that with dry as well. You train and sometimes the ball can not touch the ground for an hour because your skills are so good and everyone's on fire, and then you go to a game and the ball lives on the ground. So it can be quite different at times, but look, it hasn't rained yet at training, which is something we haven't been able to train, but that's the same at Hawthorn. I doubt they've been training in rain. There's been no rain. So the conditions were different for both teams, and we just didn't capitalise on it.
So, at the start of the game, you dominated it, and you talked about Hawthorn being really clinical. There was a passage of play I still remember in the first quarter where you carved them up by foot from defence to the members' side wing, and it ended up being a Christian Salem goal. And I thought, wow, that was like it was beautiful football. And I thought, these blokes are on today. What happened after that?
Well, I'd like to know myself. My feeling live was we just sort of dropped the bundle a little bit and weren't prepared to do the stuff that Hawthorn was prepared to win. So, for example, wet weather game, the dirty stuff, getting in there nice and low and winning the contested ball, winning the clearances and and getting tackles, which we got smashed in all 3 of those numbers. So that one will be the one that I think will come out of the review. And I hope some of the guys learn from it and see the guys that have been doing it for years, like Liam Shields, and what they have to do to win games like that, and hopefully some of our young mids can get the education from that. But like you said, the first quarter there were some positives, but we did lose by 70 points as well, so I'm not going to really look at the first quarter as a massive positive. Jesse Hogan had 12 touches, not in the first quarter, in the first five minutes of the game. He was on fire, but I'm not going to take too many positives from the game, though. No,
and I'm not asking you to, and I'm not trying to sugarcoat anything, because it was, in the end, a really disappointing performance. But I just, from a neutral observer watching the game, even though I have a Hawthorn interest, I was really impressed with the way you played that first quarter. So I thought, bloody hell, there is something here to work with. There is something to build on. Clearly didn't go your way, and in the end you were outplayed. But whilst it was disappointing, I think you showed that you can match it, certainly to a degree. It's just a matter of how you balance it out throughout the duration of 4 quarters as opposed to 20 minutes. Yeah,
I'm not selling our stocks yet. I'm still relatively excited with where our group's at. I'm going to add the JLT games to this, but we're 4 out of 6, and if I decided to kick straight, we'd be 5 out of 6. So we're not actually going too bad. Obviously, we had a shocker on the weekend, and teams are going to have that, but I'm not going to jump off our ship yet. I'm still pretty excited.
And you did have a shot in the same spot. Now, a lot of people will go, was it inside your head? taking that shot, going, here's my chance, I'm in almost the same spot.
Yeah.
Did you think about it all at the top of the mark?
Well, believe me or not, I actually did exactly my routine. I counted my steps, I took my deep breaths, and Hawthorn players were trying to put me off as well.
Yes.
And all I
So
heard
that-
was noise, which means you're in the zone, so I didn't hear any words, so I was well and truly in the zone. I just had a shocker of a ball drop. So it's something I got to work on. Obviously, pretty crucial goal, that one as well. That was to put us, I think, 4 goals up going into quarter time. So, and the other one was to win the game. So they're pretty crucial goals. They're probably deflating the team a little bit. I'm hitting them at training. I'm just not quite hitting them in the game at the moment. So I'll keep working on it, and hopefully one goes through soon. I'll keep putting myself in that position and take.
Well, that's
taking it
right.
out.
Yeah,
So-
at least you're in the position.
Yeah, we'll talk about other things after the break, but the last one I wanted to ask you was about the goal streaks. We were talking about it with Rodney Eade yesterday. I think it was 7 against Brisbane, 10 against Hawthorn, a couple of 4s against North Melbourne and Geelong. Can you sort of put your finger on why that's happening?
I've talked about momentum here before.
Yeah.
Every team's going to get it. The best teams are the ones that can stop it the earliest. And that's the thing we're probably struggling with at the moment. Sometimes the mindset can be, oh no, it's all gone bad here, we've got to try and kick a goal. And that necessarily isn't the best message to send across. You almost just got to worry about stopping their play. So there's been times where we haven't been able to stop the momentum, and that's, like I said last week, just going straight back to the fundamentals and the basics of football. Which we didn't do against Hawthorn. We definitely didn't do against Brisbane for that little time slot, and Geelong early on in the game as well. So they're little things we got to work on. Momentum's going to keep coming in every single game. Every team's going to get a momentum part in the game. Even if you win by 70 like Hawks did, we had momentum in that first 10 minutes. So every team's going to have it. The best teams are the ones that can stop it the earliest.
And this is probably a question to the three of you. Are you aware of it out on the field? Because obviously you've got the scoreboard to look at. But are you aware of how many goals it's been in a row that a team's kicked and all that sort of thing? Or is it the game's being played so quickly and so much noise and you're focusing on your role that you don't notice how many that it might be?
Oh, for me, you're aware that they're dominating possession. Like, as Max said before, you go, geez, they just keep winning the clearances. And we seem to be just defending. Like, I feel like I'm parked in the back 50 doing stoppage after stoppage, or we kick it out and I'm only getting 10 metres up in the ground and it's coming back to us already. It's not even necessarily, as you said, the scoreboard, ticking away. You do feel it. You go, geez, we just can't get near it or get our hands on it. You spend the whole time just chasing arse. You do notice that, don't you? Like, you go, I'm going back and forth. Is there any chance we can touch this? At some stage.
It's how quickly you recognise that as well.
Yeah.
So it's how quickly the coach can get a message to the runner, out to the group. The group can change their mindset. So it's all about but that 5 goals could be kicked in that time. So it's how quickly you can recognise it, how good the leaders are to be able to get it done.
Does that become leadership then? Because it's sort of one of those things that's what the good teams do. They tend to sense that moment almost before it happens or just as it happens to make sure that those momentum switches aren't so dramatic.
Well, I think it's important that you have your spread of leaders on the ground. So often, if you're around the middle of the ball, you're so focused on, geez, we just got to win the next clearance. But if you've got a good leader who's in defence behind, they can often see how it's all set up. And even in attack, they can go, look, you know what, as Max said, we don't really need to score right now. We just got to stop them scoring. So let's send a couple of forwards up. And the defenders might go, instead of taking 2 or 3 metres off proactive, we might just get on the back shoulder for a bit. And let's just take 4 or 5 stoppages in a row and take 2 minutes off the clock just to slow the pace of the game down.
It's a good discussion. 7:20, Maxie Gawn from the Dees is with us in the inner sanctum. We need to get to a break. There's plenty more to talk about with the big fella after this. You mentioned before, Maxie, that you're playing next Tuesday, Anzac Day Eve, on next Tuesday night. So you've got a 9-day break, which is unusual. And you said you got Monday, Tuesday off this week. How does that break in? Is it a good time to have those couple of days off, or would you prefer to have just kept rolling?
The perfect transition is 23 7-day breaks in a row, so you play Saturday every week. That'd be the easiest and the best way to play football, but unfortunately there's times where you're going to have 9-day and 5-day breaks, but it's probably for a better cause this week. We get to play in front of potentially 80 or 90,000 at the MCG against the Premiers, so it's pretty exciting.
I hated anything more than 7 days.
Yeah.
Because you
breaks the cycle.
your phys editors or your strength and conditioning
Get another session in.
dorks.
Oh.
Yeah, we can get some extra work in here.
No, they always chuck it in.
Yeah,
They
I
always
don't
chuck
want
it
extra
in.
work. I just want to go out and do some circle work and kick a few goals and come back in and have some lunch.
The best ones are actually the 6-day breaks.
Yeah, 6 days is the
6-day
best,
breaks are
yeah.
fine. You hardly train and you get straight
Yeah.
back out there.
You do the one main session, which is
Yeah.
all sort of skill based, and rest up the next day and play.
Yep.
Because then you got to back up with a 5 day. So I mean, I imagine this 2 week period is pretty important for not only obviously the games that are being played within this window, but after as well, because your bodies could be quite sore after this.
Yeah, this is where the phys ed guys get their money. It's going to be, we've never had a 5-day break. They sort of get carried away and start running around panicking when it's a 6-day break. So a 5-day break will be interesting for them, and it'll be interesting to see if we even put the boots on during the week.
So what do you do when you have a couple of days off in season? So you've got a 4-day break essentially from the club. I mean, have you got time to do anything? Have you got any hobbies out of footy or any sort of business interests that you do to sort of, keep your mind off footy, particularly after a bad loss that you had on the weekend?
I like your line of questioning, Whitey. You really want to know what I'm doing away from the club, don't you?
Well, we want to know more about what you do.
Yeah, look, I'm someone who doesn't go to uni. I did that early on in my career, and now I'm past it, and I've actually got a bit of time off, which is good. I'm starting a food truck, which is something that's taking a lot of my time at the moment.
Now, this is very interesting.
What's the name you're giving it? They've all got some clever names.
The bearded Jaffle.
Ooh, there you
Oh.
go. I feel like a
Jaffle.
Jaffle right now.
Yeah.
I know he does over there, Whitey.
So that'll be Jaffles and coffee. Me and my brother are making the food truck from scratch. It's an old Ford F100.
Oh, wow.
100, which is good. And that'll be around the springtime.
Very good.
So that's taking a lot of my time at the moment.
Look out for the bearded Jaffle.
Hang on, when were you doing an OB around Spring Carnival time?
We should do an OB from the bearded Jaffle.
I'll bring it in and park it here, and we'll go Jaffles and coffee one day.
Sounds like a great
Yeah.
idea.
Very good.
I'm more than happy with that. More than
I'll be over my diet by then. So
You don't need Whitey to come down. He's making a comeback, did you know, to footy. He's going to
Go
play
on.
a game this year.
late in the season.
A handy little forward pocket, or
Exactly.
Ah, victory in one.
you can, it's written all over you.
Hey, where's your forward
Creative.
forward pressure like?
Don't know what that is. Don't know what that is.
Should we re-sign you then?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Now, sorry, I want to ask you about Jake Lever because there's been a lot of talk about him. Obviously, the big recruit coming to the club, and he hasn't had the best of starts. I must confess, I was surprised when there's even talk of him in the media about he needs to be dropped or that his position's under pressure. How's he going? And how long do you think it'll be until he gets sort of into the groove of being a Melbourne player?
He's a pretty upbeat character, so it doesn't really affect him. I'm not sure if he's reading it or listening to it, but that's not really affecting him. I know he's a bit down on his own form, so he should be able to get over that in the near future. But you got to remember he's very, very young still. So I don't mind what he's doing out there. Actually, personally, I don't know what everyone's talking about. I actually am enjoying the work that he's bringing to our back line. So if there's room for him to grow, there's room for him to grow. But he's still young and he's still learning his time in the Melbourne defence.
Yeah, I find it a bit over the top actually. I guess the criticism of him, and look, he's owned it. He said his ball use hasn't been great, but a lot of players, as we've seen in the early rounds this year with the added pressure, ball use hasn't been great. But what do you say, Whitey? What would you think is Jake Lever's one wood as a defender?
Well, his ability to help others.
Yeah, so intercept possessions.
Yeah.
So he's still top 10 in the competition in intercept possessions.
Well, there you go.
So he's still delivering exactly what you got him there for. So I don't understand what the big issue is.
Well
Yeah.
answered, Jim.
Yeah.
I wish I had that answer locked in.
Take that for data half.
Research, not just a suburb, Jim.
Research is just not a suburb, as you taught me.
Nice work indeed. So, just further to broader discussion on footy and not so much individuals, but have you worked out who's good yet? Because it's the first time in 21 years no team's undefeated after 4 rounds. We've got 6, I think, that have won 3, 10 that have won 2, or 8 that have won 2. Do you know who's any good yet?
I worked out Hawthorn are pretty good.
The hard way.
Yeah, the hard way. The Premiers look good again, Richmond. But apart from that, there looks like to be a lot of teams around the same mark. Obviously, Port Adelaide started with 3-0, but then they lose to Bombers, and then Bombers start looking good again. And so I don't think you'll know till later on in the year. And I reckon there's going to be a big log jam around 8th this year. So It is even more crucial, that percentage that unfortunately I don't really like talking about, but more crucial that you're able to get some good percentage and making sure you get some good wins on the board.
4 rounds in JLT. Is there any pattern in the game at the moment? I know everyone went small forward crazy because Richmond won the premiership off the back of a manic pressure in the forward line. Are we seeing any trends already for this year?
Probably not as of yet. I'm starting to see positions come back. There was a time there, especially when the Doggies won their flag, that 18 players almost played in 18 different positions. Now today, especially the full forwards back. There's some small forward pockets at the back. There's some half back flanks that are well and truly back in the game, and then there's rucks as well, which are showing that they're dominating around the ground.
Why is it happening with the rucks? Is the game being played differently, or are just the rucks in really good form?
To be honest, I've always thought, especially with the 2 guys the majority are talking about in Brodie and Steph, I've always thought that they were genuine guns and they were doing this already. I just reckon it's gone. The media's gone to them now. So, look, I'm not sure why. A lot of people say the second up rule might help, but that's only the ruck contest, and they're not really talking about Brodie and Steph in terms of their actual ruck contest. It's the stuff around the ground. So I don't know. I don't think the second up rule is actually the reason. I'm not sure why the numbers are getting better, but they are.